Alrighty then. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Matthew Baker of Beautiful New York Tours. A lot of people tell me that they want to see memorials when they come to New York. It doesn't sound like the happiest activity, but it means a lot to a lot of people. Certainly I remember when the 9/11 Memorial first opened. You'd think there was nothing else to see in New York. Everybody had it at the top of their to-do list. And I do understand, because for a lot of people, that's a pilgrimage. Now, the 9/11 Memorial itself is certainly a stunner and extremely well known, and rightly so. The beautiful waterfalls sculpted by Michael Arad do draw people making a pilgrimage from every corner of the earth. But it is certainly not the only one. It's not even the only one for that particular tragedy. You know, there are a lot of little memorials to 9/11. Every little town in New Jersey that lost residents has a memorial. Every school that lost graduates has a memorial. Companies that lost employees have memorials. You know, they're everywhere. And some of them are really beautiful and really touching. I realize that the word favorite sounds a little crass when you're talking about memorials, and I certainly don't mean to, but one that I find particularly elegant and particularly moving is just across the street from the Biggie, and it is the American Express Memorial. The American Express building in the World Financial Center has a stunning memorial to the 11 workers that the company lost. They lost 6 mailroom clerks and 5 travel agents. And they have a beautiful memorial there in their lobby called 11 Tears in honor of those 11 workers. It is an 11-sided quartz crystal suspended by 11 wires over an 11-sided pool. And from 11 invisible tear ducts in the ceiling, the 11 tears fall. The names of the lost are engraved on the edges of the pool, along with beautifully heartfelt and in some cases charmingly quirky descriptions of the people being commemorated. So definitely check that out when you are down there in the neighborhood because it is worth seeing. Now, way far away from the 9/11 Memorial, there's a very historic memorial up in the Harlem area, and that is, of course, Grant's tomb. It's almost the subject of jokes nowadays when people talk about Grant's tomb, but in fact, when it opened, and from the time it opened up until the opening of the Empire State Building, Grant's tomb was the #1 tourist attraction in New York City. It was up until about 1930. It's strange to think now because it feels like one of the forgotten monuments of the National Park Service, but it is a beautiful, beautiful mausoleum. It's the largest mausoleum in North America, and of course the popular riddle is, who's buried in Grant's tomb? The answer is no one. No one is buried in Grant's tomb. Ulysses S. Grant and his wife, Julia Dent Grant, are interred there in great big granite coffins above ground. You have to be underground to be buried. So no one is buried in Grant's tomb. Now you're not going to trust anything I say on tour. That's okay, I make everything up. Now, another very notable memorial that is worth seeing, especially nowadays with everything that is being talked about in the national conversation, is the African Burial Ground. Contrary to popular misconception, the atrocious institution of slavery was not limited to the American South. It existed as far north as New York, Pennsylvania, and Massachusetts as late as 1827, barely over 30 years before the beginning of the American Civil War. Now, during the time that there was slavery in New York, people of African descent were not allowed to bury their dead within the city limits. Now, this is at a time when the city limits did not extend past Chambers Street. So they had the African Burial Ground, which in the centuries since that time was forgotten and paved over. In 1991, construction began on the federal office building that now stands down at 26 Federal Plaza, and the graves were discovered. And I would love to tell you that once they were discovered, construction stopped, but no, this was a government project. They kept going, and there were massive protests of the desecration of modern African Americans' ancestors. And so eventually it took an act of Congress to stop the desecration and to protect the site of the African burial ground, which now is a monument run by the National Park Service, and they have a stunning museum connected to it. Bring tissues. It's very, very moving, but it is certainly one of those not completely unsung, but certainly undersung historical monuments that deserves to be better known and more heavily visited than it is. Now, these examples I have provided are just 3 examples. There are many memorials, both major and minor, both large and small, in statue form, in plaque form, throughout the city, and there are entire tours that can be built around making pilgrimages to these amazing memorials. So if you would like to do that when it is safe to do so, please check me out at Beautiful New York Tours. You can search Beautiful New York Tours on Facebook or email me at baker.tours@yahoo.com. Again, that is baker.tours@yahoo. Thank you very much.